All right, so now we go d4, of course. Whoop, no, I mouse slipped. Oh, God. All right, well, this is going to be unwittingly a, he's like, what? Damn, girl. Okay, now we've really backed ourselves into a corner here. We've really backed ourselves into a corner here because not only have I allowed queen h4 check, but I've also blundered a knight. All right, damage control time. All right, let's go e4. We have an e4, e5. We can play a lot of different stuff. And we've been playing the Danish Gambit almost consistently since we started the speedrun. But well, let's play a Vienna, because I mean, Levy recommended this in his course. You know, and I think a lot of people just want another take on it. And I am completely, I teach this to some of my students. I think the Vienna is a phenomenal opening. For people really below 2400. And part of the reason is that people playing black just don't study this move, and so the reaction is immediately wrong in many cases. Bishop c5 is already inaccurate. Now, the point of the Vienna Gambit, I'll talk about this after the game, is that you're trying to improve on the King's Gambit. And you're trying to improve on it by first developing the knight, seeing how black develops, and then playing f4. And that can give you the power to meet e takes f4 in a better way. It turns out that bishop c5 does not prevent us from going f4, something which a lot of people need to realize. Unconventional with a 5! Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. E takes f4. Okay, I'll talk about bishop takes g1, of course. All right. So this is a very hot button moment. Because, not to be political, but we don't want to allow queen h4 check. Queen h4 check is a very bad thing to allow because you can't go g3 due to f takes g3. And therefore, you need to begin by playing knight f3. That is very, very important. Not to be controversial political here, knight f3 is the best move in this position. I don't know if we can all agree on this, but we need to prevent queen h4. d6, hot take right there. That is the ultimate hot take. All right. So now we go d4, of course. Whoop, no, I mouse slipped. Oh, God. All right, well, this is going to be unwittingly a, he's like, what? Damn, girl. Okay, now we've really backed ourselves into a corner here. Because not only have I allowed queen h4 check, but I've also blundered a knight. All right, damage control time. So let's also play queen g4 and give up the queen. That's hilarious. This is what Fabi's going to play today against Snap5. I wasn't supposed to reveal this, but that was a huge accident, and now Fabi's going to be, I think Fabi's already suing me in the Supreme Court. All right. So, what do we need to do here? Well, we need to do the immediate damage control first. We need to figure out what the threat is and stop the threat at all costs. The threat is queen h4 check. We cannot prevent queen h4 check directly. We can, but we need to do it in an elegant way that doesn't ruin our position. Now let's think about this for a second. Queen h4 check g3, f takes g3, h takes g3 doesn't work because A, the rook is hanging, and B, the pawn is hanging. Can we make a move such that after queen h4, g3, f, g, h, g, both of these pieces are defended? It's not knight e2, that doesn't defend the rook, guys. Queen f3 is what we are going to start our recovery with. Yes, we're going to go queen to f3 and prepare to meet queen h4 with g3 so we can play f, g, h, g. Bishop takes c3. So he's trying to trade He's trying to trade a piece. That's already a little win for us, because that bishop was really, really good. Thank you, Kanye V, for the tier 1. This bishop was really good. Now, we need to prioritize development. It's very important when you blunder a piece. We need to prioritize immediate development to try to mix things up. So what does that even mean? We're probably going to castle to this side, because we've already ruined our king side. And logically, as you guys are all indicating, man, great to see agreement on something. D takes c3 is the fastest way to enable quick development here. All right. So g5. G5 attacking, or sorry, defending the pawn on f4. But that's another win for us. He's making subtle mistakes. He's making subtle mistakes. Why? Because let's think about this logically. We're going to castle to this side, and if he castles short, he's going to pay the price for this pawn. So we need to again prioritize immediate kingside or queenside development. We need to get our king safe so we can start attacking. It doesn't look nice, it looks ugly, but we need to get castled ASAP so we can attack the king side. Bishop d2 is the fastest way of castling. I don't give a damn about this pawn on a2, obviously, because we're going to go b3 and trap the bishop. When you're down a piece, you can't care about other stuff like that. All right. What should we do now? I taught you guys in the previous game a particular idea. This idea, and when there's a pawn chain, attacking the base of the pawn chain is often the way to go, but attacking the foot of the pawn chain can also make the whole structure topple. A5 would have been a good idea here. Transferring that here, it's the same exact concept, but here we attack the base of the pawn chain, and that's even better. By attacking the base of the pawn chain, we are likely to make the foot of the pawn chain collapse as well. All right, and let's play h takes g5. I know that he wants bishop to g4, pinning my queen to my rook, but we're going to sacrifice another exchange here in order to make his whole kingside topple. All right. So what should we do now? How do we get the most stuff for our king, for our rook? All right. Queen takes pawn, of course. We have no other choice. We got to preserve our queen. When he's going to take my rook, we got to decide what we're going to capture here. What piece are we going to capture? There's something very cool that happens in this position. There is something very cool that happens in this position. Which is that after g takes f6, his bishop is trapped. And that's stuff that just happens as a result of you playing aggressively, trying to find chances. The bishop comes back to h5. We've opened up the h file so that is defended by our rook. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool stuff. So let's see. All right. This isn't better for white yet if he plays this correctly. And I gotta say, he's not playing it badly. He gives up the bishop for a pawn. Okay. Now what do we do? Now we need to act on the fact that we have a pawn on f6 here. That's a very good pawn. That could be an anchor point for some of our pieces. We need to figure out how to develop in a very precise way. Now, the question we need to ask here is what our opponent wants. And let's reason logically. Is black likely to castle kingside? No, and we would love him to castle kingside. We'd checkmate him immediately. So he's very likely to castle queenside, and to do that, he's going to have to move his queen to d7 and castle. And we need to think about a way that we could dissuade or stop him from castling queenside. Now, as many of you guys, and I love this, as many of you guys are coming up with, we could get the bishop to g4, but that has a drawback. Could somebody tell me the drawback of trying to go bishop e2, bishop g4 in order to prevent castling? And we will go g3, bishop h3. That's a better way of doing it. It's not that it blocks the pawn. It's that he has the move knight e5 covering the g4 square. So it's not that it's slow. It's the same number of moves as this. It's only 2 moves. But the bishop on h3 is going to be far better protected than a bishop on e2, which could be prevented from going to g4 by the knight. So all this logic, all these concrete thoughts, you got to have them in order to appropriately formulate the right thoughts in the position. All right. And he does go knight e5, but now we go bishop h3. All right. Now we go bishop h3. Yeah, so since we're all left anyway, looks like focusing on the speedrun is a good idea. That's funny. Yeah, he's not getting his queen out. No, he's already in trouble. He's in big trouble because he can't get his pieces out. His pieces are stuck in molasses. His pieces are stuck in molasses, but he's playing very well. I gotta give our opponent some credit. Okay, so he's attacking our queen. We need to move our queen to a spot where it protects the pawn. We don't want to go queen e3. We don't want to give this pawn up. That pawn is a huge bargaining chip for us. So we can go queen f5. We can go queen g5. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't go queen f3, though. I wouldn't go queen f3 because then he could move his knight back to e5 and attack our queen again. So I like the f5 square. Why not queen g5? Because maybe he can play h6 there and attack our queen again. Queen g5 would have been synonymous. I also like the fact that this builds a battery. So if he plays something like queen b8, I don't know why he would play it, but if he does, we can go queen d7 with checkmate. So as he's thinking, we need to start thinking about our subsequent actions. And if we start from a general standpoint, we probably want to open up the position, right? We want to open up the center because we know he's paralyzed. We know that if the center were to magically open, then we would be in a lot better shape. Now, what does it mean for the center to open? Let me give you guys the following thought experiment. If you could capture one of your own pawns, which pawn would you capture? If you could remove one of your own pawns from the board, which pawn would it be? Well, it would, of course, be the e pawn. So, paradoxically, a lot of you guys are saying rook e1 and e5, but if you want to sacrifice that pawn, why should you go rook e1 first? Just frickin' go e5 and get the heck rid of that pawn so that you could then position the rook on e5, and if he replaces this pawn with his pawn, you could sacrifice your rook for his pawn. What you can't do is sacrifice a rook for your pawn. You have to force him to be the one to take that pawn. Now we are threatening to take rook takes e5 with a mating attack. Will he find a defense against this? I don't think one exists. We have to play fast here, and he does find a defense. Now we need to pile up on this knight. What can we do? How do we pile up on this knight? Let's keep our eyes zeroed in on the target here. Bingo, bishop f4. Again, we want to take the knight, blast through the gates of hell here with rook takes e5. Good job, guys. Good job. Everybody finding the moves. Love to see it. What should we do now? According to plan, his king's not going very far. That's why we position these pieces here. And now rook d1 check. And then our rook swoops into d7. All right, our rook comes into d7. Yeah, not to be political, but our rook comes into d7. Boom. Attacking the queen. All right. This queen has to move, and the rook comes into e7. Okay. I'm kidding about it being political. Although everything is political now, so it's only a matter of time before rook d7 becomes political too. Queen to a5. Okay. How do we actually get stuff done here? Okay, so we should begin with a check. We should begin with rook e7 check just to make his king go to f8. If he goes to d8, we go queen d7. Now let me calculate really quickly. So let me see if a very pretty move is possible, although I don't think it is. Okay, no, we should just win this normally. And we need to think logically here about how we're going to go about this. We need to attack this f7 pawn, but we need to do it in a way where we pose as many threats as possible. So the queen from d7 doesn't do it as well as it does from h5. The queen from d7 doesn't do it as well as it does from h5. And why is that? And the reason that is because this queen also has a check on h6 and, of course, a mate on g7. Right? So you need to, when you have an idea, you need to develop that idea and improve it as much as possible, particularly when you're attacking. And guys, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I see the clock, and I knew this was forced mate. I'm not trying to be a showman here. I want people to be involved in the process. We're going to pre-move queen g7. So I can make sure my... All right. All right, so he resigns. Yeah, I was debating the whole chat. That's exactly what I was doing. Now, this was a very instructive game, I think, and I appreciate people being so engaged. Again, I really, really appreciate it. So, after bishop c5, the move f4 is often misinterpreted and misunderstood because people think this is impossible due to bishop takes g1. And after rook takes g1, you see the move queen h4 check, and this sends chills down your throat because, well, this is, you know, this is terrible. This is terrible. We have to go here, and then black goes here. But take the bigger picture view here. Take the bigger picture view and realize that black has only one piece developed, and it's the queen, and that's the one piece you don't want to develop this early. So as long as white can deal with the immediate threats, white is completely winning here. Look at this queen. It's essentially stranded. You can't trap it immediately, but now what you want to do, you don't even want to take this pawn. You want to blast open the center as quickly as possible because you have this window of opportunity where black hasn't developed any of his pieces and the queen is in Timbuktu. So you go d4. This position is like +6. You can check the engine's eval. White is completely winning here. Just look at this position. This is a threat. This is a threat. White's going to castle quickly. The queen could get trapped. The game is completely over. It's totally crushing. It's totally crushing because black simply hasn't developed quickly enough, and the center is already open. All right. So let's take a look here. Yeah. So this move, bishop takes g1, is not even close to as good as it looks. E takes f4 is also an error. He should play d6. That's the best move, just keeping the pawn chain alive in the center. E takes f4, knight f3. And now we're able to see why bishop c5 is misplaced, because d4 is going to come with tempo. Now, of course, I made this genius move. But instead, d4 gives white a phenomenal position. Timbuktu is in Mali, I think. Bishop takes f4. And white's got the center. White's got great development. Now you can go queen d2. You can castle long. And you can absolutely you can enjoy your life. You could even castle short here. There's nothing wrong with that either. But I'm sure that, this has been better analyzed. But I made Fabi's novelty. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to give Fabi a call and tell him at the last second that he can't play this. I'm so sorry to everybody. I revealed the high-level preparation here. Revealing the high-level preparation. All right. So after knight d4, yeah, bishop takes d4, queen f3, and our opponent played very, very well, but he started to commit a series of subtle mistakes that ultimately led to the situation being a lot more complicated than it should have been. Okay, now what should black have done? I think the simplest approach to playing black here is just to prioritize development. You could go queen h4 check. That's a good way to start. g3, takes, queen g4. But this bishop is black's best piece. It's literally monopolizing the whole center. And by taking on c3, he's giving us a lot more air to breathe. He's accelerating the development of this bishop and accelerating, most importantly, the development of our king. If he played queen h4 before we took the knight, well, no, g3, fg, and we could play bishop g2 here And, you know, we still are in the game. Although, yeah, this would have been totally winning as well. So this is very, very bad, of course, for white too. But bishop takes d4 isn't bad. Okay, so takes, g5 is fine. Now, again, we prioritize development of our queen side. We get our king to safety. This move was a big waste of time. He should have gone knight f6 or knight c6 would have been a good move. You know, when you're up a piece, as I've said many times, trading is not your top priority. Your top priority is to do the same things that you would do if you weren't up a piece. That might be the one piece of advice that I will prioritize over the rest. If you're up a piece, the more similarly you play to a situation where material was equal, the better. You will not go wrong by playing in accordance with the material being equal. You shouldn't try to modify your play too much because you're up a piece. And the same, by the way, goes for the endgame. A lot of people struggle with endgames because they assume that there are these special rules. Привет, спасибо. Thank you, Suzik, for the sub. That there are these special rules for playing the endgame. And there are, you know, the king becomes active. But in large part, you still have to calculate variations. You still need piece activity in the middle game. And so you should not try to isolate these areas of the game and try to play too differently. Okay, so h4 to open the h file. Knight f6, hg. And here, of course, we get lucky that the bishop is trapped. But he found a nice idea, but it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. What should he have done here? I mean, maybe he should have played f6, but at this point, we can go e5 and rip open the center. And similar stuff happens as it did in the game. Knight f6, hg. Bishop g4, queen takes f4. I think Levy's now. I didn't get Levy's course, of course, but I've heard a lot about it. I think it's great. You know, and I think I'm sure he did a very genuine and good job on the analysis. So I recommend the Vienna to some of my students. Charlie plays the Vienna, so I can definitely advocate for it. Okay, so bishop takes d1, g takes f6, and now the bishop is trapped. And I think the most important moment is here. This is what makes or breaks the game. Now we have reduced the material advantage to an exchange. So how did I find g3? What was the key logic? Well, the logic is simply to try your best in as much as you can to put yourself in your opponent's shoes. I know we've forgotten how to do that in real life, but you can still put yourself in your chess opponent's shoes and think, well, what is my opponent? What would I do if I were black? Well, I would probably go queen d7 and castle because I won't castle short. I mean, that's the only thing that's the only thing that black literally can do. That's the only thing that black literally can do. And that's where prophylactic thinking comes from. You say, okay, if I were playing black here, I'd play queen d7 and castle. How do I prevent that if I'm white? Well, let's consider the drawback of queen d7 and castle. It puts the queen and the king on the same diagonal. Do we have a light squared bishop? We do. Can we get it to that diagonal? We can. Okay, so bishop e2, right? Let me figure out what's wrong with this move. Oh, he can go knight e5 and cover the square. So let's find another way to do that. Well, we can put the bishop on a square where it's protected by the rook and less accessible to the knight. Knight e5, bishop h3, knight g6. He's desperately trying to thrash around and drive my queen away, but we merely increase our chokehold. And now this move e5. We know that we want to open up the center, but some people still want to go rook e1. That's not a terrible move, but remember, you can sacrifice a piece for one of your opponent's pawns or pieces, but you can't sacrifice your piece for your own pawn. So you need to do your best to just give this pawn away so that you actually have something belonging to your opponent here, which you can then take. All right, so queen c7, we apply more pressure on the knight, then we take the knight. Rather than just taking the pawn, we realize that we have a far faster pathway to the 7th rank. We go rook e7 check, and now the decisive move, queen h5. Why was queen d7 a worse idea than that? Because here he could have given us a check, and after queen c4, he's sort of still kicking, defending the square. And so queen h5 is just a better way to get that done, because we can also get the queen into g7. I appreciate everybody being so engaged with the speedrun. This is so much fun for me. And I've got a lot of other content planned. It's not just going to be the speedrun. I'm going to do opening stuff. And there's going to be lectures, and we're going to look at games. And there's years of it that that I have planned. Just be patient with it. Everything will be out on YouTube. So yeah, thank you. This is awesome. This is great to see.